Ari, let's not beat around the bush here. This comic has a bad guy called Turner D. Century, and he is a time-travelling Victorian man riding around on one of them odd, tiny bikes. He has an umbrella that fires lasers, and he wants to transform present-day San Francisco back to how it was in Victorian times. He is, and I say this without sarcasm or irony, he is a fantastic bad guy. The problem is that he is appearing in an issue of Spider-Girl where he is tremendously out of place. Spider-Girl is not known for its quirkiness or its kookiness. You have suddenly got this issue of a comic where she is fighting a dandy on a penny farthing, and that is exactly why Turner D. Century ended up as a punchline instead of the excellent bad guy that he is. I didn't like this character, by the way, this version of Spider-Girl. Didn't like her. The one from the 80s and 90s was far superior, but Michael Bryan Benson liked this one's air, so this is the main Spider-Girl forever now. The problem with her is that she doesn't have a purpose. She doesn't have a direction. She doesn't have a unique selling point. Outside of one run on her book, which, unsurprisingly, was by my favourite writer, Spider-Girl never had her own niche. She was just another Marvel superhero who existed, who was less popular than Spider-Man and Hulk. The run that I liked, the run by Marky Mark Griswold, it at least gave her a setup and stuff. She was confronting the semi-supernatural in LA. The rest of the series is stuff like this where it's just a car crash of people having no idea what to really do with this fairly weak character. And that's how you get stuff like Turner D. Century. He is probably mostly known among comic book readers for being one of the many bad guys who were considered lame and so were killed off wholesale by a vigilante in 1986. More recently, I think he has become one of those characters that you see funless people like Dan Slott latch onto and sarcastically and ironically claim that he is brilliant. Turner D. Century is one of those ideas that the individual aspects of him didn't work. The name, his motive, time travel, him being this eccentric guy on a big wheeler with an umbrella flamethrower. But altogether, it is like a storm in a teacup. And if only he had been in an appropriate book, he would not have become this big joke. I think of Turner D. Century, and maybe because this issue is written by Jim DeMatteis, I think it's just a one-off filler issue written by him. But I think of Turner D. Century, and I cannot help but feel he would have been a perfect presence in Defenders. Some people might say that the biggest tragedy with the Defenders is that they have not been able to sustain their own series since 1985. I disagree. The biggest tragedy is that they never fought turn a D century in about 1982 or 83. Spider-Girl fans might be annoyed that I am barely talking about her, but that reflects my feelings towards this character. She is just not interesting. She lacks any real reason for a reader to care about her. The only notable thing about her is that she is one of the earliest solo female woman lady superheroines at Marvel, and she has a convoluted backstory that draws in a lot of disparate elements to make her seem firmly rooted within Marvel's mythology. Really, I cannot stress enough, I think Turner D. Century is brilliant. I think he was wasted in a random issue of Spider-Girl. But at the same time, the biggest praise I can give to Spider-Girl series is that it featured the debut of Turner D. Century. This isn't a bit. I really think Turner D. Century would have been a wonderful bad guy to have crop up in Defenders. I have this vague image in me head of Doctor Strange, Hulk, Velcro, the Cat aka Kate Leff, Etrigan the Demon, Satan's Son, and Slayer Man being transported to this like Victorian era town, and them all having to wear costumes to blend in, and Hulk, who is still Hulk-sized, he is wearing a big Mac coat and a hat. See, Turner D. Century fits in a book like that. Defenders can go from something like Null the Living Darkness to a sideways dimension world based on the work of Dr. Seuss, and it is fine. Spider-Girl can it. Other than this issue, her series has largely been incredibly serious and dour. A bit of flippancy wouldn't hurt, but this is too much. You kind of take a book like Spider-Girl and throw it onto a bouncy castle for a month. As I said though, this is a fill-in issue, and much like this same writer used a random fill-in issue of Avengers to set up a storyline for his run on Defenders, an element from this ends up resurfacing in both his run on that series and also on Captain America. Sadly not Turner D. Century himself, even though Captain America series as well would likely have been a better place for him to appear than Spider-Girl. We have a retired, reclusive, 90-year-old millionaire inventor man called Morgan McNeil Hardy, and we find underneath his mansion there is a Truman Show style town. Turner D. Century was raised in it, and he is the only other person who resides there other than the Richard man, Morgan, who drives around in a tiny little car, which was funnier to me than it should be. And we find out how Morgan McMoneybags, he hated change. He saw the upheaval of the 60s and he saw it as a disease that infected people. So he created this environment to hold on to the past. It is where he and Turner D Century live now, and he hopes that one day the whole world will embrace this simpler time. But he doesn't realise Turner D Century is fucking insane. So much so that he believes he is a time traveller from the past. And his devotion to these values and attitudes are so strong that he will kill people who didn't conform to his standards, the standards of the Arden days. It is an abrupt ending as it all burns down and both Turner D Century and Morgan McNeil Moneyman are apparently engulfed in the flames of the fake town. Some of the backstory at the end isn't fantastic, but I don't know how much of that can be blamed on it not really fitting this series' tone. Maybe the explanation would work better in Defenders or Captain America or whatever. As an issue, this is okay. It has got a great idea in there. But it's a flippin' Spider-Girl comic, so it's not really that good. I'll still give it 7 thumbs up though for Turner D Century.